The packed courtroom buzzed with tension. A teenager barely 17 years old sat nervously in the front row. His clothes were plain, his sneakers scuffed, his face calm yet unreadable. At the judge's bench, a seasoned official sneered and muttered words loud enough for everyone to hear. To the spectators, it was almost laughable. How could someone so young possibly belong in this place of sharp minds and seasoned professionals? But the smirk on the judge's face would not last long. Because in just a matter of moments, this very teenager would stand up and shatter every expectation in the room. The boy's name was Marcus Hale. He grew up in a small town where opportunities rarely came to families like his. His mother worked double shifts at a hospital while his father juggled construction jobs that often paid less than they promised. In their household, books became Marcus's escape. Where others saw walls closing in, Marcus saw doors hidden in pages. He read everything from old history texts to dense legal documents he borrowed from the dusty corner of the town library. Yet the town was not welcoming. Being one of the few black families in a largely segregated community meant Marcus carried a burden invisible to his classmates. Teachers often underestimated him. Strangers made assumptions when he walked into stores. Even when he excelled in class, whispers followed. Words like lucky guess or probably cheated stung more than insults shouted in his face. By the time Marcus reached high school, he had already memorized sections of law books that even graduate students struggled to interpret. But nobody knew. To them, he was just another kid trying to survive. That morning, Marcus had not come to court by chance. His cousin, falsely accused of theft, was scheduled for trial. The family could not afford a high-priced attorney. They had managed to hire a local lawyer known more for cutting corners than for defending clients. The lawyer arrived late, unprepared, and uninterested. Marcus sat there, his heart pounding, watching as his cousin's future dangled by a thread. The courtroom itself carried its own silent judgment. The wood-paneled walls and towering columns seemed to magnify every bias held by those in power. The judge, a man who had spent decades on the bench, was known for his sharp tongue and impatience with kids who thought they knew better. When Marcus adjusted his seat, flipping through his worn notebook filled with scribbled legal notes, the judge's eyes caught him. With a dismissive laugh, the judge shook his head. He whispered to the bailiff, loud enough for others to catch fragments. "A child in sneakers thinks he can play lawyer." What the judge did not know was that Marcus had prepared for this moment more than anyone else in the room. The trial began. The prosecution painted a picture of Marcus's cousin as a reckless youth, careless and dishonest. They showed grainy camera footage that seemed, at first glance, to implicate him. The defense attorney, disinterested and unprepared, barely objected. He shuffled papers and muttered weak responses. Marcus clenched his fists. Every detail in the prosecutor's argument contained flaws. The timestamp on the footage did not match the time of the alleged crime. The store clerk's testimony contradicted itself under careful listening. The evidence chain had gaps that would normally crumble a case. Marcus had seen it all, but he sat helpless in the audience, his notebook trembling in his hands. Then came the breaking point. The defense attorney leaned back in his chair, whispering to Marcus's cousin to just take the plea deal. Panic shot through the family sitting nearby. Accepting meant prison. Accepting meant a future destroyed. Marcus's mother's eyes filled with tears. She turned to her son, almost instinctively. He had always been the quiet genius in the family, the one who could explain complex ideas in ways no adult could. And in that moment, Marcus felt something shift inside him. He stood. Slowly, deliberately, his sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. The judge frowned, irritated. Marcus asked, almost calmly, for permission to speak. The judge mocked him outright. "What's next? A high school debate in my courtroom?" Laughter echoed in the back rows. But Marcus did not flinch. He clutched his notebook, lifted his chin, and began to speak. His words were precise, confident, and undeniable. He pointed out inconsistencies in the evidence. He explained, in detail, why the timestamp invalidated the video. He cited precedents from past cases he had studied late into the night. His tone was steady, not arrogant, but filled with quiet conviction. The laughter died. The prosecutor shifted uncomfortably. The judge's smirk faded into a thin line. Even the disinterested defense attorney sat forward, wide-eyed, realizing he was being overshadowed by a teenager who spoke with the authority of someone far beyond his years. The tension thickened. Marcus was not supposed to know these things. He was not supposed to challenge authority, especially in a space where power often silenced people like him. But here he was, unraveling the entire case thread by thread. Every second built suspense. Every word pushed against the weight of prejudice pressing down on him. For the first time, the courtroom felt divided not by race or age, but by truth versus denial. The judge slammed his gavel, demanding silence. His voice thundered that a courtroom was not a playground. Yet even he could not ignore the clarity of Marcus's argument. The prosecutor attempted to recover, but the foundation of the case had already collapsed. Marcus turned one final page in his notebook. He revealed an overlooked detail. The police report listed evidence collected on a day before the crime allegedly occurred. That single point dismantled the entire accusation. Gasps erupted. The gallery leaned forward, hanging on every word. The judge's face flushed red. For years, he had dismissed young voices, mocked them, and assumed ignorance. Now he found himself cornered by undeniable logic delivered by the very person he had ridiculed. Silence filled the room. It was not the silence of respect for authority, but the silence of recognition. Recognition that truth had emerged from the most unexpected source. The gavel came down again. This time, it was not in mockery. It was in defeat. The case was dismissed. Marcus's cousin walked free, tears streaming down his face as the family embraced. The defense attorney avoided eye contact, humiliated. The prosecutor packed his files quickly, muttering excuses. But the judge sat frozen, his gaze fixed on Marcus. He did not offer an apology. Perhaps pride would never allow it. But the courtroom had witnessed something unforgettable. A teenager mocked for his age and appearance had risen to expose the truth in a system designed to silence him. News spread quickly. Some dismissed Marcus as a lucky kid who stumbled onto a loophole. Others recognized brilliance when they saw it. For the family, however, it was not luck. It was the fruit of late nights spent reading under a flickering lamp, the resilience born from being doubted, and the strength to stand tall when it mattered most. Marcus left the courtroom with his notebook pressed to his chest. He knew this was only the beginning. One day, he would not just defend a cousin. He would defend countless others who never had the chance to be heard. The question lingers long after the story ends. How many voices like Marcus are silenced every day by prejudice and assumptions? And what would happen if, instead of dismissing them, we listened? Because sometimes, the very people society mocks hold the keys to justice we all desperately need.